Welcome to JT West. Thank you all for tuning in. I've been looking forward to doing this video. This video has been almost a year in the making. And let me tell you a little bit about the thought. And I know you've probably seen the title of the video already, and that may be why you're watching. And if you're here for the first time, which you could be, maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you like it. We occasionally try to do things like this, but I bought this truck and I did a review on it, and I'll see if I can tag that review at the end of this video. But I did a review on it. It's a little over 3 years old now, and it's a 2022 6.4 liter gas engine. And you guys have heard about the HEMI ticks and this tick and that tick and lifters and everything like that going out. And I thought to myself, I said, is there a better oil that I can give this engine the most absolute chance of longevity of another oil out there? So I used this truck uses Pennzoil 0W40 Ultra Platinum. That's what it uses from the factory. Get my thoughts right here. So it uses that from the factory. That's what they recommend. Heard a lot about Amsoil, so I chose it. It had a 040 signature series. So we, tested some, and speaking of testing, we're using speed diagnosing testings. And this is where I get all my tests done. These guys have done all the tests. Wonderful place, easy to read test, everything's so wonderful. This is the last oil change, by the way. I have been doing this throughout the year. Actually, it started last year, November of last year, and it's July now. And of course, I've changed oil there, filmed a little bit there, and I was going to try to document it that way, but I thought, I'm not going to document it that way. I will show footage of it, but this is it. This is the last oil change. We're sending this test off, and we're going to find out which oil is the best oil for this Ram engine. It's not, is Pennzoil better than Amsoil? It's not it's not pitting the oils together, because you may take those two oils and put them in a Ford or Chevrolet and they react totally different from the components of the engine. My quest was to find out which is the best oil for my Ram truck. I've heard a lot about Amsoil, heard a lot about Pennzoil. Did Pennzoil just give Ram a little bit of pocket change, and they said, hey, we recommend Pennzoil? That happens, advertisement, hey, help me out, I'll help you out. So it's not that I didn't believe Ram, but you don't know. You don't know what goes behind the scenes in board meetings and stuff like that. So I wanted to find out which one this engine likes better. This is the last test. We've had 2 Pennzoils, 2 Amsoils. How this test ran was, all the truck had ever had in its whole life was Pennzoil. Never had anything else. When I changed that oil, I tested it. I put Amsoil 040 signature, ran it for 3,800 miles, dumped it, put signature back in it, ran it for 3,800 miles, tested it. Ran another 3,800 miles, tested it. That's 2 signatures, 1 Pennzoil. Ran another 3,800 miles with Pennzoil, dumped it, ran another 3,800 miles, and I'm fixing to test it. This is the last 3,800 miles with Pennzoil. So we've had Pennzoil, Amsoil, Pennzoil, and a change in between the switch. All of them's been about 3,800 miles, 38, 39, somewhere in there. I will say, as it just worked out this way, it wasn't intentional, the 2 Pennzoil changes have a trip to Michigan with 14,000 pounds of cargo on a gooseneck. The 2 Pennzoils have that trip on those oil changes. This one does, and the first one that I did. So with that said, we're going to change this oil. We're going to send the test off. It comes in this nice box here with some instructions and stuff, and of course you have a return box, and obviously the test kit in here that will get some oil out in a minute. Some instructions here on what to do. It's been a very easy, seamless process. And you know, maybe your car's getting close to running out of warranty, and you know, you get to oil test it and you find out it's got some water in the oil. You know, you could have an indication of a head gasket or something of that nature. You know, I like these oil testers. I really do. It tells you a lot, and it's pretty informative. But let's get this changed. Let's get the oil sent off, and we'll be back in a minute with the results. Guys, welcome back. And we are with Lake Speed with Speed Diagnostics, and he's going to go over these numbers for us, because if I give them to you, it's no telling what you'll come up with. So, Lake, with that said, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being on my channel, and appreciate it so much. And please, take it away. You
Sure.
know the premise of what I want to do. You knew the testing. You've kind of been involved the whole time, and behind the scenes, and giving me suggestions to do this many oil changes to get some better data points. So I'll let you take it from there.
Well, you did the exact right thing. You did a proper ABBA test. That rarely happens, right? So you ran 2 fills each time of the baseline oil, which was the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum 040. You did multiple fills and flushes, essentially, of the Amsoil Signature Series to properly establish that baseline, flush completely, then back to the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum with the flush runs in between. No different than would happen if they were running an ASTM engine test, say for fuel economy. It's the same type of procedure that's taking place. So that gives you a really high level of confidence in these results for your engine, right? We need to put a big asterisk on that, because you know, there's going to be some people who get their feelings hurt with what we're about to show. So just we know that up front, right? But what I hope everyone has their ears open and can just listen is that I've said it a million times on my channel. Application dictates chemistry. There is no one size fits all best oil.
Right.
And these results provide a good example for that. So let's go ahead and show them. Then we can kind of discuss it a little bit more.
Okay.
So we've got right here, like I said, you had the ABBA. So the further right-hand column over here, AAA 8929. That's the first sample, which was back in September, and that's the baseline of the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum.
And
if we look down, a couple of key things here we want to point out that these are all 040 oil. So anything between 12.5 and 15.3, no 16.3 centistokes is a 40 grade. So at 13.2 right here on viscosity, it is within viscosity grade. And then the oxidation value is the chemical health of the oil. So one thing about the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum and the Amsoil Signature Series, which was the comparison oil here, they're very different in terms of base oil chemistry. They're both synthetics, but where the Amsoil Signature Series is a PAO ester, so a group 4, group 5 combination, which is why you see that higher oxidation value than the Pennzoil. It doesn't mean that the Amsoil degraded faster. It just starts from a higher place because it's chemically different. With the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum, it's a GTL, which technically is a group 3 base oil. So very different. That's gas to liquids. So
which your last video went over that group.
Yes, we did. We did the group 5 oils, aren't very well understood video. We really got into explaining all the differences and the different types of synthetics, because people use that term synthetic, and a lot of times people know they think they know what it means, and more times than not, it's not what you think it means. There can be a wide range of things, not all of which are necessarily good for an internal combustion engine or for certain applications. So we can see the additive package here, and in a previous video I did about the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum, that's one of the things that I kind of touched on that I thought was interesting about this product, that it's really doing its work using the natural characteristics of the base oil. It's not coming in guns a-blazing, 800 parts per million of this and 5,000 parts per million of that. It's not, that more is better approach. It really is more of that subtle, less is more type approach in this oil. Very balanced additive package. And then we see that on the wear levels, you had 12 parts per million of iron and 28 parts per million copper. So let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about these engines. And I'll just be blunt. All of these, they're not just Ram, right? Because it's also Dodge, right? All these HEMI engines, they all produce a higher level of copper compared to their, we'll call it their cousins, right? If you look at an LS or an LT engine or a Godzilla engine or a Ford modular of the same displacements or similar displacements, and none of them generate copper at a level like this. And I don't know what it is. I know some people say, well, there's copper in the oil coolers. I mean, I haven't seen a copper oil cooler in a long time. They're mostly aluminum. So I don't believe. Go ahead.
Oh, I think mine's aluminum for sure.
Yeah. I think most of them I've seen I'm pretty sure that's aluminum. That's not copper. So, but, I know you mentioned to me previously when we were talking that it has displacement on demand. Mm-hmm. So it very well could be that some of the variable valve timing, the displacement on demand functionality, that there's a, copper or bronze or, something, it's a bushing or something in that system that contains copper. And as it's actuating, it's shedding copper. And we can see that in these samples. And yours are actually really good, to be honest. We've seen them in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s on trucks that even have 100,000 miles on them, which is very mind-boggling. So overall, at 14 parts per million with 28 parts per million copper as our baseline sample, that's not too bad for a HEMI engine.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's good for other engines, but for HEMI, I'd say that's okay. So then you switch to the Amsoil Signature Series, and the copper went up. And, I told you at the time that even though with a flush in between, sometimes it takes a little bit for that oil to kind of do its job and settle in. So we need to give it at least 2 full shakes, even with that flush run in between, to see where it lands. And what we see is that it still stayed high, right? 52 the first sample, 39 on the second sample. It was still up. The viscosity did drop down on that second sample, but those 0W40s, those wide split multigrades, they're more prone to that mechanical shearing.
Okay.
Where the polymer can get chewed up by mechanical action in the engine, which will cause the viscosity to drop. So that's not uncommon to see that. So I wouldn't put that on Amsoil. I wouldn't say, oh, the Amsoil is a bad oil. I'm like, that could happen with anybody's 0W40. Because we see that pretty regularly. Some oils are worse than others in terms of shear stability and breaking down. We don't typically see that with the Amsoil. So I'm going to say whatever was happening with the engine at that time, something was triggering more mechanically that was maybe chewing up the oil. And again, 0W40s or any wide split multi-grade, by the way, 550s, 1060s, 040s, 030s, they all do this, depending upon the application. So your wear metals per 1,000 miles, the best with the Amsoil was at 15.4 parts per million. Yeah. And then you went back to the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum. And the going back is the real key here, because now it goes back, and now we're back down at 24 parts per million. And that's the key thing, is at now you're back under, 25 parts per million, 30 parts per million, which again, for one of these engines is really good. That would trigger at most labs being over 20. But again, our experience with these engines says that if you're in that, 20 to 25 range for one of these motors, man, you're doing really good. If you're probably that 25 to 30, you're still not doing too bad. That's not too, it's good. So you're less than 15 parts per million total wear metals on that. So these are great results and just show that the ultra platinum is a really good chemistry for these engines.
Which I will say here, and I think I told you, so the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum September the 28th sample and the July 5th sample both had a trip to Michigan with 14,000 pounds. So the oil temp got up higher than it ever did with the other two samples. And the second thing, and I could be wrong, and I'm not telling anybody to do this, from the day this truck came from Kernersville Dodge, I ordered it special. It wasn't I ordered the thing just like I wanted it. I have never let the MDS system work maybe more than 2 seconds when I realized I forgot to toggle my transmission selector down to 8. I'll always run it. It's not in overdrive. Not in tow haul. It's you drop it down a gear and it won't turn on.
Right.
And it still gets in all 8 gears. It's not in drive. It's in 8 out of 8 or, whatever. Yeah. I just never let it come on because my thought was I never want to cut any oil anywhere. I want the oil to be running all the time. And so I do know these cylinders, or I know that these module things restrict some oil somewhere. And I just didn't want that to be the case.
Yeah, they use oil for activation. So it is definitely one of those things where I think if you can keep the engine running on all 8 cylinders,
that's what
probably better for the engine than it sometimes running on 4, sometimes running on 6, and it's not sure what cylinder is running on right now, and it may change in a minute. That's not the best thing for an engine, I'm pretty sure.
Well, the other thing was I wanted, especially during the break-in, I wanted all 8 cylinders to have close to an equal temperature.
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted the exhaust manifolds to heat up equally and come back down equally, so I would hopefully not have the dreaded HEMI tick with the broken exhaust manifold bolts. Yes. And so this whole test thing was, again, I watched one of your the Motor Oil Geeks videos. I don't know, it was before September last year. It was probably in the summer that year, and just like you, just was in awe of the science behind it and not the the real world test behind it. And I really just fell in love with it. And I said, you know what? I want to give my truck the best opportunity it can to last as long as it can. And that's where this came up with. And, not picking on Amsoil, but I just picked it because it was supposedly one of the oils that is supposed to be some of the best. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to run it in the truck if it's not doing no good. So
right. Oh, again, you could have easily just chosen that one on brand alone, and the engine wouldn't have said, hey, this isn't as good as the other one. You wouldn't have known that if you hadn't done the testing. But the testing gives you data, so now you can make a data-driven decision and say, okay, for me, where I live, how I drive, Pennzoil Ultra Platinum works better for me than Amsoil Signature Series.
Yeah.
That's the fact. People can read more into this than that if they choose, but that's not what we're saying. What we've said all along, like I said in the other Motor Oil Geek videos, we tell people, I can't tell you what's the best oil. In fact, I already know the answers. There isn't a best oil. There's no one size fits all best oil. It's really based on where you live, how you drive, and all these things as to which product is going to work best for you. And just like going to school, if you want to be valedictorian, you're going to have to put in more work. It's going to take time and effort to get better. And you put in time and effort to get good quality results doing proper A, B, B, A testing. So now that you know that, okay, hey, these are 2 really good oils, but one of these is a little bit better for me. And now you know that.
And I learned that from your channel about, stressing the fact that, hey, it's this particular engine with this particular oil, does it like it? And
Yep.
that's, and it makes perfectly good sense. And, I'm not saying I couldn't do some more tests and have a mobile one do as much as Pennzoil or not, but I think I'm happy with Pennzoil. I think we'll stay with Pennzoil. But the thing we haven't mentioned that I think is great with these tests is if, you can keep it like the water and the glyco in the oil samples. Fortunately I'm negative here, but what if it was a little bit of water? You may have a head gasket problem or something. And these
and we see
that.
We see that pretty common anymore, that as engines are aging with the organic oats technology, the different type of antifreezes in them, we're seeing some higher mileage vehicles with very slight head gasket leaks.
Yeah.
Where what we're seeing is potassium and sodium creeping up before we see the water and glycol. So it's a very, very small leak that's getting into the combustion chamber. So that leaks small enough that the amount of water, the amount of glycol that gets in is just burning off. It's never getting into the oil. But the residual ash from the sodium and the potassium, the additives that are in the antifreeze, in the coolant, they stay in the oil. And we can see that. So what we see right here is that your engine is very healthy, no abnormal contamination, no really abnormal wear. You just had a higher level of wear on these copper components in the engine with the Signature Series versus the Pennzoil Ultra Platinum. And I think I have an idea as to why, copper is often used as a catalyst. Because it's pretty reactionary it's on that side of the periodic table where stuff likes to react. And because esters, which are part of the blend here with the Signature Series, they also contain oxygen. So when you've got oxygen that's over here that likes to grab electrons, and you've got copper over here that likes to react with stuff too, it can be a little bit reactive. So those copper levels might not necessarily be abrasive wear or mechanical wear. That could be more corrosive wear. Chemical wear is probably a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Because we see that sometimes with high ester oil. So again, not picking on Amsoil here, with the Signature Series. It's pretty common with some engines that have, we'll say, a lot of known copper parts in the engine, that with a higher ester oil, sometimes we can see that high copper level, and it is, we'll call it chemical wear occurring because of how it reacts. And, the downside is, if it doesn't cause any additional wear, then it's probably really not that big of a deal. You don't like it, but when you see other items at a higher level too, then you kind of like, well, and these are all real similar. But the reality is it's pretty clear, in this case, the factory oil
Pennzoil
is the right choice.
Yeah. And that's what I set out to discover. And it's been a wonderful process. And unfortunately, I don't have another vehicle to try this on.
Listen, I really appreciate you taking all the time, spending your own money to do all of this, right? It's like, not like we sponsored you to do this. You chose to do this. You reached out and said, hey, what's the right way to do this so I have good results? And then again, you put your time and money where your mouth is to go do this. And I appreciate you doing it that way, and then coming out and sharing your results. Like, you could have just kept that to yourself and just laughed at everybody else for, doing what they think's right without having any knowledge. You did the testing and showed and shared your knowledge, and that's great.
Well, I wanted to share, and I think in January we spoke on the phone, and you said, you know what, this would be a lot better data points if we, did the couple more and got, some more data points. And it does. It really, I'm so glad you told me to do that, because it does give it better data points.
Well, the other thing too, for some people, this is pretty good validation that what the OEM tells you to run,
you should run.
You should probably run, unless you have oil analysis data that says otherwise. Obviously with the GM recall, there's an issue, right? There's a whole reason why you should do something different than what they were saying initially.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you were testing from day one, you could see what works best for you and figure that out. But what I always tell people is start with what the OEM told you to do. It's in your owner's manual. Start right there. Use the OEM viscosity grade, use the OEM spec, whatever it is. Follow that. Get through the break-in period. Get your baseline established. Once you've established that, then if you want to try something else, go try it.
Yeah.
Do what you did. Do a flush. Do at least 2 oil changes in a row after the flush, taking samples to establish the baseline and compare that to the OEM. If it's better, awesome. If it's not, try something different or go back to the OEM oil.
Yeah.
Just do it based on data, not what the marketing guys told you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or the forum guys. Did I say that? I'm sorry. Just don't listen to your buddy or the marketing guys. The data will guide you in the right direction. And it's it's easy. It's hard work, as you know, but the reality is this is not unobtainium, and it's not stupid expensive to do this.
No, it's not at all. Very, very good price. Not at all. I think if a person was buying a used car, and it would be great if they had that little bit of window where they could do this, but in a real world scenario, that's probably not going to happen. But
we do have some people that actually buy our rush kit. You can literally get the results back in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
They do that when they're buying some of these really high end, like Porsches and stuff like that, where, it's $100,000 car. They're like, yeah, I want to know what the oil analysis says before I cut the check. So here, let's grab a sample, send it off. We'll wait a week. And then, hey, by Friday, we'll have the results so we can tell you whether or not we're buying the car.
Well, I can see that. And do you think that if a person had one of those GMs and say at about 6,000-7,000 miles, they said, hey, I think I'll send this off to Speed Diagnostic, could they have caught some of that?
Well, it's interesting. We've had it happen both ways. So we've had a couple customers that send in samples and we're like, hey, you've got a problem. Your engine is actively failing. Don't drive it.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Sure enough, I think one guy was on his way to the dealership to get the thing checked and it blew up. Right. And it's like, yep, that did exactly what we thought it was going to do based on that. But at the same time, we've also had somebody else where their stuff came back looking good, but then they went and said, okay, I'm good. So now I'm going to go do something else. I don't know if they were towing or did something different. But once you change that operating condition, you could now be in that situation. Because the whole thing with the GM deal, with bearing failure is it's viscosity times speed divided by load. So if your normal daily driving, I'm worried about this vehicle because of the recall, I'm being careful with it. I'm not lugging it, I'm not towing with it, I'm not doing these things. Well, you can create a false operating environment. And then you get the all clear. Now you go start operating it in a different environment.
Yeah.
You're putting more load on the engine, and maybe I'm towing uphill. So now my load went up and my speed went down. Well, now you could easily change that bearing film thickness and cause a bearing failure, and you can't see it coming. So in a lot of cases, I'm going to say what we've seen over the last couple of months with the GM situation is we can catch most of them, but if you change how you use the vehicle after you get the results, we can't guarantee what's going on. It's kind of like going to the doctor.
Yeah.
Right. If you've been living healthy and doing good and you go to the doctor and get a clean bill of health and then go out and change your diet and start doing a bunch of stuff that's not good for you, that report can't help you anymore. It's a trailing indicator.
So you're telling me if I start a hot shop business tomorrow on this truck, throw these out?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right.
It's funny you say a hot shot business. So those guys typically have really good results. You know why? They're all highway miles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Short trip driving in the city is the worst thing in the whole world. I guarantee you take your same truck and you drop that truck in downtown Atlanta. Actually, we'll go worse than that. Let's go downtown Chicago, right? Go somewhere where it's cold. And that same truck operates in that colder environment, short trip driving, you're going to get worse results. Same oils.
Don't say cold. We don't want to open that can of worms. I watched that video too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I'm just playing. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about with the diesels.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So real quick, fuel dilution. What exactly, I noticed the Pennzoil is better. The first time was
those are all within the range. That's all within normal ranges. So
okay.
We like to see fuel dilution below 2%. So if it goes over 2%, we're going to start to kind of flag it. If it goes over 3%, you're going to get the big red X on it. Hey, stop what you're doing. Something's really gone off here. So does that mean the fuel dilution below 2%, right around 1%, that's actually really good.
So does that have to do with how much fuel's getting past the rings?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. Yeah, that's chemically the number of fuel, the percentage of fuel molecules in the oil.
Okay. Well, man, I thank you for doing this for me tonight, Blake, and enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm happy to do it, man. Very happy to do it.
I do have
you did hard work. I got the easy part, right? We just got the test of oil, and I got to look at the lab report and send it and say, "Hey, man, your stuff looks good. This is cool."
So I do have
the easy part in all of this.
I have one question. I wrote it down. See,
right.
I do have one question that some of my normal subscribers can draw from that watch the channel a lot with our Farmall tractors. Is there an oil? So International Farmall 140s, they use SAE 30 low ash oil from Case IH. Is there, it's kind of hard to get Case IH oil. There's not that many Case IH dealers running around here. Is there an oil that would be compatible to something like that? And I know you don't know the makeup on it. So if you're like, Joey, listen, I don't know what esters are using. I don't know this. That's fine.
Well, there's a couple of hints there. So being a straight 30, that's typically going to make it a mineral-based oil. You're really not going to see straight 30 synthetics.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, and then it being low ash, that makes it a little bit trickier. They must be trying to use it for other things besides just the engine, right? Are they trying to use it like one oil for everything in the tractor?
No. The hydraulic is a 30 weight hydraulic oil they use, but they use something else. It's just a low ash.
Different for the engine.
What does low ash mean?
So low ash typically means you're going to have a lower level of detergent. So a perfect example. We're just going to bring our thing back up. I thought we were done, and no, we're not.
Oh, okay.
So the ash containing additives are going to be calcium, sodium, magnesium, zinc, phosphorus, moly, boron. So if you compare the two oils here, the Pennzoil is a lower ash oil than the Amsoil Signature Series. There's more additives in the Amsoil product than in the Pennzoil product. So I would say more than likely that the oil International is calling for here is going to be something that, again, straight 30 weight. So it'd be a little bit lower viscosity than this, probably around a 10 or 11 cent of stoke oil. More than likely, you're going to be closer to these numbers, but you're not going to have any moly and that kind of stuff. You'll probably have a little bit more zinc, potentially maybe in this 700, 800 range, but probably not a lot of calcium or magnesium, which is very interesting. Is that a diesel or is that a gas?
No, they're gas. They're industrial
That's why.
gas
Yeah,
engines.
that's why. Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, they have long strokes on them. 4-cylinder, long strokes, probably bigger bores. Tons of torque at 2,000
Okay.
RPM.
Okay, so this is a perfect example that what we now call LSPI, or low speed pre-ignition, the stuff that happens with the detergent level in the gasoline engines contributing to abnormal combustion, that they found in turbocharged direct injection engines is actually existed for a long time. What you're seeing there is just that's long stroke engines like that where the dwell time at the top of the cylinder is long enough that if there is a high level of ash, it can build up more deposits and actually cause abnormal combustion. So that's exactly why they want that. So really, an API SP rated straight 30 oil would fit that bill.
Okay. All right. Well, you are a very busy man, and I do not want to keep you. And so thank you again for getting on here and explaining these results. And we appreciate it. And we thank you so much.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I'm glad everybody got to watch. And this is cool. Again, I'm going to thank you one more time for, one, choosing Speed Diagnostics, but then two, doing all the hard work here and letting me do the easy part.
There you go.
All right. See you.
Thank you. See you.